for receiving us.
Sure, thank you.
What I was wondering, you were talking about the fun part of the
Yes.
polling and about this playing a strategic role.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give some more explanation
Sure.
on this strategic role?
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Well, I mean, when someone runs for office, assuming that they have the money, they often hire consultants. They have their own campaign manager and campaign staff that run the campaign wherever that election is taking place, and but the consultants they hire are usually a pollster, our firm, a media consultant who will develop the television ads or the radio ads, whatever paid communications that the campaign, as opposed to the earned media, the press covering it, where they're going to pay. They'll hire a mail consultant, so direct mail, and increasingly direct mail companies are doing internet campaigns also. So we still don't see a lot of internet. I mean, you see a lot of internet fundraising, but you don't see a lot of internet kind of campaigning. But it's increasing. Banner ads on websites, click through to the candidate's website, and then you hire opposition research potentially. So that's a firm that basically does research about the opponent and also on the candidate themselves. We will want to know a lot about the person we're running against, including not just obviously their record. If they've been an elected official, we'll want to know what their votes have been on key issues, but also if they've paid their taxes and have they have a drunk driving conviction or anything like that, the unsavory side of elections. And then they'll also potentially hire a phone vendor, which is different from what we do. But I don't know if you know about what robocalls are, but you have this kind of computer calling people saying, today's election day, vote for my candidate, or they'll leave messages on voicemail and answering. I guess people don't really have answering machines anymore, but on voicemail. That's also what you see some of these ugly calls that say, John McCain fathered a black child out of wedlock, that sort of automated calls. That's from the 2000 primary in South Carolina. The Bush allies did that against him. Okay, so you have all these consultants, and the research that we do informs what they do. Obviously, a candidate has his or her own set of beliefs and values and their own life story, and that sort of informs what we do. We don't have a candidate come to us and he says, who am I and what should I be? What policy position should I take? They say, here I am. These are my views. How do I effectively package or sell or communicate who I am and what I care about? So the research that we do informs that, and we will do a survey where we do a whole range of exercises where we look at their biography, their issue positions, their vulnerabilities, what potential attacks might be made against them, how we might respond to them, what potential attacks we want to make on our opponent, and out of that you create the strategic plan for the campaign. We also look at targeting, so we'll say, okay, here are the groups who are supportive of you, you need to get them out to vote on election day. Here are the groups that are never going to vote for you, forget them, don't pay attention to them. Here are the groups that are sort of not sure what they want to do, we need to persuade them to vote for you. And so the plan comes out, and it informs what the media consultant does, the scripts they write. Informs what kind of direct mail pieces get sent out to voters. It informs the field plan when you go and knock on doors or try and get people out to vote, which groups you're going to target and which areas geographically. And those conversations don't just happen the one time you do the survey and tell everybody on the campaign. Those conversations happen every week. And when the ad company writes the script, they send it around, and we look at it and say, okay, this is great. This actually really reflects very well what we found in the research. Or you could say, no, you've just written the ad you want to write, but it doesn't, which happens more often you can imagine, but doesn't actually reflect what the research says should be the way that we go about this. So as you get towards election day, you're talking to the field part of the campaign, talking to them about who they're talking to, who they're trying to get out to vote. So it's an ongoing advice, and it's usually, it's only January, I already, for the congressional campaigns I'm doing, have weekly phone calls with the campaign manager and the candidate and the other consultants talking about what they're doing. At this stage, we're mainly talking about fundraising, endorsements. We're not really talking about ads yet because it's too early to do that. But I actually started some of these calls last year, so the campaigns are going on for more than a year.
You're doing it for several candidates?
Yes. Yeah. I'm working for 3 people running for Congress. 2 of them are incumbents, and one of them is challenging an incumbent. But I'm mostly not doing candidates because I'm working for the outside groups. And this is going to be very complicated, but the way our campaign finance laws work, these outside groups cannot coordinate with the candidates. So it's really hard to work for both sides and not break the law. So what you do instead is you work for one side or the other. You either work for candidates or you work for the outside groups, and that just I mean, no one's telling you to do it that way, but if you're, I don't want to break the law. There are actually felony penalties in the campaign finance laws, like literally you could go to jail. It hasn't happened yet. Mainly what has happened is the FEC has fined different groups for violating campaign finance laws, but you literally could be convicted of a felony. So no one's telling you to do it this way, but if you don't want to break the law. So we have kind of virtual firewalls in the company. And so there are other people in the company who are working for people running for Senate, and they have passwords on their folders on the system, so I can't go in and look at the data. I mean, obviously part of this is just trust and, honorable behavior, because I could go walk into somebody's office and take something off their desk, but, I don't do that. So at any rate, I'm not working for very many candidates because I'm doing so much work for the other groups that are trying to influence the election, and I don't want to break the law. I don't want to illegally coordinate. So it's very complicated.
What kind of groups do you work for?
Well, we work for, there are sort of special interest groups that have certain issues they care about. So for instance, labor unions. And they will do a lot of work mobilizing their own members to vote and to vote. What's interesting about union members in the U.S. is that union members are only about 13% of the electorate. We've got a very small and declining union movement here. But if you look at your typical union member, it's a white man, maybe in his 40s or 50s. They tend to vote very Republican, like 60%. But if you're a union member, about 60% Democratic. So unions are very important, and unions provide a lot of the money on the Democratic side, a lot. I think the AFL-CIO, which is the biggest union, spent $100 million in 2004. Overall, about $1 billion gets spent, and so $100 million actually doesn't seem like so much when there's $1 billion being spent on elections. But anyway, so labor unions, environmental groups. There are environmental groups. For example, there was a member of Congress named Rob Palumbo in California. Pombo, sorry. He was the chairman when the Republicans controlled Congress of the one of the environmental committees, and he was very anti-Endangered Species Act, wanted to throw it out, and a lot of the and he was just a horrible on the environment, just terrible. And so a lot of the environmental groups in the U wanted to get rid of him, basically. So so Defenders of Wildlife and the Sierra Club and Humane Society, these pro-environment groups, basically ran independent campaigns against him on environmental issues, and he lost. So we'll work for those kinds of groups. Pro-choice groups. We work for for NARAL, which is one of the biggest pro-choice groups here. We'll work in individual congressional districts, targeting groups, voters that are pro-choice, and talking about either the pro-choice or anti-choice records of the different candidates. So it really is a whole range of different groups.
You work for Emily's List?
Yes. Yes.
You're going to visit them after you?
We do, but Emily's List is a little more complicated because Emily's List has, you can ask them about this, but they have their independent expenditure side that will do exactly what I'm talking about, which is either run ads or send mail on behalf of certain candidates, but they also have a side that can directly help candidates. So they have firewalls in their organization as well. We tend to work on the independent expenditure side for them and help them figure out the campaigns. But yes, we work for them. But what's interesting about them is, unlike a Sierra Club, which is going to only really talk about the environment, they have a much wider, for them, they're trying to elect women. They're sort of agnostic on what issues they talk about when they communicate. If healthcare is the most important issue in the district and their female candidate has a good record on healthcare, you'll talk about healthcare, or you could talk about something else. But it's not. They don't have a particular, besides being pro-choice, they don't have a particular issue that they're trying to advance. They're trying to elect women generally. So.